ready, council member.
I am ready. We can go. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome to our to the hearing of the Finance, Education, and Columbus and Recreation and Parks Department committees. We are here to discuss the 2021 operating budget. I very much appreciate the participation of the departments here today that are here to present. I am grateful to especially our Madam Auditor for joining us today to discuss the 21 operating budget. We're going to start with an overview of city revenue projections from the auditor. This has been a very different year. 2020 has been one unexpected turn after another. And I'm grateful for the steady leadership of Auditor Kilgore, who has her eye on our revenue and who is also helping us navigate what to expect in 2021. So without further ado, Auditor Kilgore, can I turn the floor over to you to walk us through city revenue projections?
Certainly. Thank you, Finance Chair Brown. And remind me, the distribution for this, is this being on, I just don't remember, is this on Facebook right now or the city's, the delivery of YouTube? Remind me how this is being disseminated.
Yep, I think we're on Facebook. I know that it's on YouTube okay. And I think also on Facebook.
Good, I think so as well. So that's good because I want to address my comments really accordingly. So thank you, good afternoon. And to those, certainly to President Pro Tem Brown and your chairs, your capacity as Finance Chair and members of council and the viewers at home, it gives me an opportunity to share a little bit as auditor about how we are ending 2020 fiscally and also what I'm looking at for 2021. And part of the responsibility of the auditor, for those of you at home, is that we set something called the revenue estimate. The official revenue estimate is what guides the ceiling for what the budget's total amount can be. And so we carefully look at all of the revenues affecting the general fund of the city of Columbus. And it's been a very challenging year, much like it has been for anyone who has navigated the trials and tribulations of COVID and its impacts on our financials. So let me kind of give you a little background before we get into some of the numbers. You know, this revenue estimate that our office puts out, we did a couple of revisions this year. The second one, the most recent one, was on October 19th, when we decided to go ahead and update the revenue estimate for the remainder of 2020 and release the official revenue estimate for all of 2021. And, you know, that adjustment in June accounted for, we had a previous adjustment, the adjustment in October was the revised estimate for 2020 based upon a revenue estimate that we'd already adjusted, which was earlier in June. And the reason for the adjustments, which is somewhat atypical, you know, especially for a city with our diverse and our frankly very stable composition of employers, is because of COVID. It was very, very difficult to anticipate what the economic loss was going to be given the multitude of factors from public health, its success of public health efforts, all the way to how employers responded to consumer sentiment. So we've had a very full year, and you know, I'm glad that we are looking into 2021 at this point and having some more certainty as to, you know, really where we are as an employer base. So let me take a little bit of a timeline here. So beginning of 2020, we released what we thought our revenues were going to be. In 2020, mid-year, around June, we did make a revenue adjustment. And that revenue adjustment was based upon what we thought was going to be the immediate economic fallout for COVID in really the first few months, which I kind of call the bottom. So fast forward a few months, we saw how employment trends changed. We looked at labor force. We looked at how our major employers were shifting to remote work. And we made an adjustment in October from the June estimate by about 24.1 million. And while that sounds like a sizable sum, nearly 12 million of that was due to a Bureau of Workers' Comp rebate that Governor DeWine had requested be released to governments during that period. I very simply put, this was not known in June that this revenue was going to be released. And so we needed to make that adjustment happen in October. Additionally, from the period of time of June through, July, August, September, we did see income tax revenues come back in a little bit stronger. And so we were able to adjust the revenue estimate for income tax from about a negative 4.5%, which is where we were at the tough months, up to a negative 1.5%. And that's in comparison to 2019 revenues. That June estimate conservatively anticipated that revenues would remain much closer to what I'll call, the bottom again. That's March, April, May. And so while we did receive a slight bump in the income tax revenues received during really the beginning of the third quarter, all other revenues, with the exception of investment earnings, actually required a downward adjustment. So income tax went up a little bit. The rest of the revenues largely went down. But to make sense of all of these numbers, I kind of want to explain the story of Columbus. So I'd like to take just a moment to talk about really our economic experiences. And as a reminder to those of you watching from home, we're a very income tax driven city. About 78% of our revenues come from income tax. And those are revenues that go into our general fund where we pay for all of our essential city services. Because we are reliant upon income tax, we can really see the needle move when we do have economic events, especially something like COVID that had a very sweeping and very fast effect. And so you've heard me describe the immediate fallout from COVID as looking like a Nike swoosh, where we had a quick decline, an immediate drop in revenues, and then a gradual incline as the economy not only reopened, but employers were able to sometimes switch to remote work and e-commerce and things like that. Fast forward to more of the present, our employment trends have really morphed into the letter K, which has been widely used around the nation to describe really the impacts of COVID and its great inequities. And so what we're seeing today is just what a K looks like. For those who have been able to maintain employment or have been able to regain permanent employment, they're largely continuing on that upward trajectory. Conversely, those who have been affected by long-term job loss, or by maybe other factors limiting their ability to be employed, we are showing downward declining economic statistics. So to that, if you look at the economic data, we are definitely seeing a deepening of our long-term job loss. While temporary job layoffs have slowed every month since April, permanent job losses have increased. And this does show itself in our income tax collections. It is, particularly clear, something that Finance Chair Brown and I work on together, are a lot of, studies and looks at, really the inequities of COVID. And it is absolutely abundantly clear that COVID has had a particularly adverse effect on women here in Columbus, especially Black and Latino women in our community. Over the next couple of weeks, my office, we're going to keep digging into those details. For example, trying to unpack, if you look at just labor force participation and the impacts with women, how much of the effects are due to childcare versus sector-specific job closings or true job loss. So we got a lot of research still to do and unpack. To give context to, what a negative 1.5% growth rate, how that compares to prior years, this previous worst year at the city, we've only had 5 negative years of income tax collections since we began tax collections in 48. We've only had 5 negative years. The previous worst year was 0.85% negative. So at negative 1.5 now, it is a sizable loss. So while we have seen some improvement from the revision we did in June, we are still at serious negative levels, especially in context to the levels we thought were previous worst case. Looking ahead to 2021, I am forecasting largely a continuation or, pretty tough through the first half of next year, then anticipating and in the early spring, some income tax collections to improve slightly. So you will see in the revenue estimate for 2021 that there is a 0.5% increase of positive growth planned there in mostly the latter half of the year. For those of you at home, there are lengthy notes on all of these other sources of revenue that we have here at the city, in addition to income tax, that's published in the official revenue estimate, which is available on the city auditor's website. In closing, really the critical word right now is duration. Like for so many of our residents, how long we experience the impacts of COVID, the deeper our experience will be with revenue loss. And there are certainly many unknowns, including how we successfully navigate these next few months here in the winter, the success of public health and certainly vaccination efforts, and any future stimulus that may come from the feds or the state. Chair Brown, I'll continue to provide updates as to the city's revenue estimate in 2021, should we experience any material changes. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Madam Auditor. That's all very helpful. I have a question about, I think that looking at our revenue picture is important for council members on 2 levels. First and foremost, because we have to pass a budget, right? We're working through this budget, and we have to use the best data that we have, which is your charge as auditor. But also because, we are here to ensure that as many families as possible can recover and thrive in our economy. And so, our budget isn't just a picture of what kind of revenues come to the city. It's also a picture of how folks are out there able to earn an income or not. So I am curious what amount. You were not auditor back when in the last economic downturn, but I am curious how much you rely upon comparisons to past downturns and just how quickly an economy is able to bring jobs back. Simply when, sort of the lack of a negative economic pressure occurs, that doesn't mean that a job is immediately turned on. There are several factors in the economy that have to go right in order for jobs to be created. So a downturn can happen quickly and can be harder to get out of. So I'm just curious how much of that historical data impacted your projections for 21 and go into your thinking about sort of the rate of recovery here in Columbus. While none of us has a crystal ball, I know that you use a lot to go into these kind of educated projections.
That's a really wonderful question. And, what's interesting is I was not in my formal capacity. I was not elected then, but I was actually with Auditor Dorian, and Director Lombardi was not in his position then either, but he certainly was, I believe at that time, Director, you were CFO over at Utilities. And so we saw this live, and we saw, perhaps most importantly, the tremendous amount of anguish that went into the administration's decisions to have to cut what I would call essential city services, during the toughest recession in our cities prior to the present in our city's history. What led to the difficulty in 08 and 09, when ultimately tangible cuts were made, where people really felt that, they felt service level shift, was one key word, and that's duration. And you note that I probably said that a lot in my remarks, but if you look at the city's history with our negative income tax years, 3 of those 5 years happened since '02. 3 of the 5. '02, '03, '07, '08, and '09 were all very, very tough years in our city's past. When you are, just like your home, if you are have your own family's, you're managing your own family's funds, when you will get into tough times, it takes a long time to get out, especially if it continues to go on for a period of time. And so when we were having lower than anticipated revenues, the economy was starting in its double-dip recession. Every year that went by continued to snowball into greater and greater need. We had more people who needed more services, and we were getting less revenues, and we had to therefore make cuts. It was the duration, And so with respect to, comparisons, it's actually easier for me to go back to 1918 and look at Spanish flu than it is to make comparisons to a true lengthy recession. The objective right now for me personally is to work collaboratively with a lot of our financial institutions to help our small businesses, especially, those who are recently on a period of success, navigate cash flow issues, keep afloat without having to put costly credit on their backs. Fact is that, this is not a recession by traditional economic definition. Instead, this is a crisis as a result of a global health pandemic. And our employers in our corporate skyline, a lot of them have been able to work. They've been able to work remotely. We have a robust economy here, but the people who are really struggling are those sectors that you're already very familiar with. So in terms of the city right now, duration is critical. Next year is going to be tough. I'm very worried about the effects on this next year, especially for social service agencies. But in comparison to '08 and '09, it's a matter of duration.
Thank you. And I also know that so much of the data really pointed to the fact that a lot of families, when we looked at our overall economy, we could say we were out of the recession, we were doing well, but really a lot of families never recovered from that hit in '08 and '09. And you can look at our numbers in the shelter system to sort of see that. And so I appreciate the analogy, auditor, of the K, and I think that's something that's really important for us to continue to consider on council as we're navigating budgets. And then also thinking through budget priorities, right? How we're making sure our city budget is providing those essential services for families who do need help from their city. So thank you. Those are all of my questions. I also did confirm we're on Facebook and YouTube, by the way. And I really appreciate you being here. So thank you again for that. And we will move into the additional portions of the hearing at this time. So thank you again. Our next presenter is the director of the Finance and Management Department. So in addition to a review of the Finance and Management Department budget, Director Joe Lombardi will provide a brief overview of the entire proposed budget for the city of Columbus. His team really is responsible for working with every single department to get that budget in front of council, to make sure all the pieces are in place so that we can consider a comprehensive budget, as well as so that departments individually can have their budgets considered by committee. So Director, thank you for joining us. Would love to hear again that overview of the whole proposed budget, and then your sort of targeted presentation regarding your own department. Thanks again for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, President Pro Tem Brown, and Auditor Kilgore. Once again, thank you for your very layman way of putting the very difficult things that you do every day. I heard you say brief, so I've cut this down from an hour and a half to about 15 minutes. So I thought since I didn't want to keep us too long. And I want to welcome those that are listening and viewing today on Facebook and YouTube. But I want to thank, obviously Mayor Ginther for his support and guidance, and the mayor's office staff, especially Chief Paul, President Harden for his leadership and partnership through this process, and all the council members and Councilmember Brown for your leadership as chair of the Finance Committee. And Auditor Kilgore for everything she does to help us get to this point. All of our departments and all the work that they did, and especially as you indicated, my staff, my finance staff, our analyst, Adam Robbins, and especially Aileen Heiser, who leads those analysts through a very difficult 2.5, 3 months worth of hard work, late nights, and crunching numbers. So without them, I wouldn't be standing here today so proud. So they do a good job for me. As the auditor said, there are two roles in the city of Columbus. The auditor's role is to estimate the revenue, and the Department of Finance and Management director's role is to budget those revenues and where they will be spent. We begin that process usually in June with kind of what we call a target budget. We send those out to departments. We base that on working with the auditor's office and trying to get an idea of what we think the estimate's going to be for the next coming year. Those are usually back to us late summer, early fall. And then, as the auditor indicated in October, she will provide the administration with her official estimate. As you indicated, Councilmember Brown, I will give a overview of the general fund portion of the budget, and then I will talk about our budget specifically. And I know there are other budget hearings later in the month and in the coming weeks where departments will give more detail to their budget. And as the city auditor indicated, 2020 has been a challenge. I think we all know that, and it provided a lot of crises, health crisis, a human service crisis, and obviously an economic crisis. And the official estimate from the auditor is a very, very important part of establishing the budget, because without that, we would not be able to know exactly where our North Star is, so to speak. So it provides the mayor with all the available resources he would have for the coming fiscal year. On November 12th, Mayor Ginther proposed this 2021 general fund operating budget, and it is considered for council at this point, and it is balanced per city charter and fiscally responsible. The key point I want to make is that we developed this budget without using any funds from the rainy day fund, the basic city services fund, and without contemplating any layoffs or furloughs. This budget is aligned with the mayor's equity agenda and invests in police reform, affordable housing, and neighborhoods. When you add all the funds, every fund that we have available in the city of Columbus, the 2021 operating budget is $1.98 billion and supports over 8,500 full-time employees. The general fund portion of that budget is $964 million, which is $5.5 million less than the 2020 amended budget. The general fund supports the operations of all city departments except for enterprise-funded departments such as public utilities, whose funding comes from their utility fees. The operating budget is built on a combination of resources. $883 million of it is estimated revenue, $4 million is estimated transfers to the general fund, $5 million is estimated prior year cancellations, and then we had $72 million in estimated carryover or year-end balance, which includes $48 million in savings in the third quarter and the additional $24 million in revenue. The Department of Safety remains a significant portion of the budget. However, the 2021 budget invests in a different approach to public safety. Increased investments in public health, technology, and neighborhoods are to reduce the burden on our police officers and to develop a holistic approach to public safety. Besides the comprehensive neighborhood strategy, care coalition, and neighborhood crisis intervention, the budget will invest in implementing the recommendations of the Community Safety Advisory Commission and the Matrix Report, establishing and staffing the Civilian Review Board in the Office of Inspector General, which, as you know, Issue 2 was approved overwhelmingly by our voters on November 3rd. It also has an expansion of ShotSpotter to the Near East Side, new technology for computer-aided dispatch and records management, officer wellness program, the expansion of mobile crisis unit to address addiction, mental illness, and people in crisis, and also investing in social workers to assist our first responders in addressing behavioral health. Our diverse neighborhoods are the soul of Columbus, and the mayor continues to invest in them. The Neighborhoods Department budget increased by $2.3 million and includes funding for the implementation of the One Linden Plan and Envision Hilltop, My Brother's Keeper, and other programs for new Americans. Furthermore, the city continues to focus on affordable housing. Besides the $14 million in the capital budget that was recently passed by City Council for affordable housing efforts, the Department of Development will hire a director-level position to focus on the city's affordable housing strategy. The budget provides funding for our young people by investing in Celebrate One, pre- and postnatal evidence-based home visiting, recreation and parks programming, and the Early Start program. Columbus Public Health has been on the front lines, leading and guiding our city through this pandemic. This is why the Columbus Public Health General Fund budget increased by 23%, with a total general fund budget of $33 million. The department will continue its effort to lead the community out of the pandemic and to address behavioral, addiction, and mental health issues. Funding is also earmarked for additional contact tracing efforts. Furthermore, health remains committed to addressing the opiate crisis as part of the Columbus and Franklin County Addiction Plan, and to look at public safety through a more holistic lens. Funding is included in public health for additional social workers. Diversity and inclusion and sustainability remain a priority for the mayor. The 2021 budget invests in the Urban Tree Canopy Initiative, and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion will continue its effort to implement the recommendations from the disparity study in the 30 by 30 challenge to address workforce and workplace disparities and discrimination. As with any challenges throughout 2020, balancing the mayor's budget came as a result of making tough decisions. The budget does not include deposits into the Rainy Day Fund or Basic City Services Fund. However, those funds have healthy balances to ensure that the city can address any uncertainty this pandemic may have on our economy or on our community. The budget does include $2.7 million deposit for the 27th day pay period fund, which will bring the balance to $4.4 million during 2021. The administration will continue to be fiscally responsible and ensure we are investing in our community and the services that we provide to them. In closing, I would like to thank Mayor Ginther for his steady leadership, and I am proud of the efforts from my department colleagues and my team. Their dedication and hard work through these challenging times is much appreciated. That concludes my overview of the mayor's 2021 operating budget, and I will take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Director. Can I start by just asking for you to, again, clarify the amounts in rainy day and basic city services? And just if you can kind of give as direct an explanation as possible for why those remain untouched, why they weren't brought to bear on this budget, I know that your department has been working very, very hard all year to cut costs and to not have to present a budget. First of all, not to have to lay off folks in 2020, and then not to have to present a budget that lays off folks. That's key, and I'm appreciative of the hard work. But just to be very clear with residents about the balances, exact balances in those in rainy day and in basic city services, and why those balances remain, why it is a smart thing for the department and the mayor to be recommending keeping them intact versus using them.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Brown. At the end of 2021, the estimated rainy day fund would be 85.5 million. And the Basic City Services Fund has nearly $21 million in that fund. The reason why those funds were not used to help balance the budget was for a variety of reasons. The first reason is we don't know what the uncertainty and the impact will have in 2021. And by having a balance, excuse me, in the Basic City Services Fund will allow us to act quickly should we need to buy additional PPE, should we need to buy abilities for social distancing to help continue services that we provide every day. If we would have used that balance, we might have not been able to pivot as quickly during 2021. The rainy day fund, and I know that Auditor Kilgore and I have had great philosophical discussions about the use of the rainy day fund, and I think we're both in the same boat. I always feel that the rainy day fund is for a long-term, long-lasting economic downturn. And I think it is the last resort. It will not be easy to use it because, as you know, it will not be done in a vacuum. It will take a lot of folks to gather together to make that decision, including the auditor, the administration, and council. And as you know, by taking, if for example, if we took 10 million out, it would take us nearly 5 to 7 years to rebuild that 10 million back. And that would put us in a very tough position should the economy really go into a hard recession. I, like the auditor mentioned about the analogy of using your own home, you begin first by looking at some of the things that you don't need to purchase, the things that you don't need to spend on. Now, my wife will tell you cable would be first. I tell her no because I need my sports and I've got to have it. Then the next thing you would go to is maybe your cell phone or maybe your Netflix accounts or maybe your memberships. And you work through that waterfall. And if it continues to be tough, then you dip into what I would call as your house, a savings account. So that's my philosophical decisions on why I think the rainy day fund is for more of a long-term, long drawn out economic crisis. And it's not something that is easy to make that decision on because of how long it will take to rebuild that back up. You know, since 2009, it took us almost 11 years to get it to where it is today. Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Two sort of follow-ups, and one including a clarification from the auditor. Our rainy day fund is different, as you said, Director, from Basic City Services. And there is a best practice to try to get close to 1/10 of your operating budget in it. How important, or is it important at all, to the rating agencies, Auditor Kilgore, to consider the size or existence period? I know that not every city has a rainy day fund. To consider the size or existence of that fund. Is that key in rating agencies? You know, mysterious mismatch of ways that they rate us and therefore give us a grade rating that allows us to borrow at a lower interest rate for the taxpayers?
Yeah, thank you for that really good question. And I agree with Director Lombardi's sentiments. To answer your question, Finance Chair, yes, the rating agencies look very deeply at the two things pertinent to this conversation. And this is something that's really changed even in my almost 20 years in public finance, is they now try and quantify management's capability to make tough decisions in times of economic downturn. So what is the likelihood that the City of Columbus would be able to come together as a council, administration, and auditor to make those tough decisions that will be able to put the city on its best fiscal foot forward? And historically, we've made those tough decisions. And, that's through a lot of credit to Mayor Coleman and to Auditor Dorian and the folks that stood before us. But, when you look at the cities, why we're a AAA rated city, that management piece is a very sizable piece of it, as is our commitment to our fiscal policies, one of which does include an adherence to commitment to the rainy day fund. Right now, it's a little bit shy of what 10% would be of next year's expenditures, but we are in a good fiscal footing there. I would like to add on to kind of Director Lombardi's metaphor about, our home funds, and say a rainy day fund for a city is very similar to a retirement fund or a 401k. If you're dipping into that, it comes with sizable penalties, and it should be used as a last resort after everything else is exhausted, because it's really hard to rebuild. Would it carry economic consequences? Absolutely. It would put us in a position of vulnerability. It would carry, at least awareness to Wall Street, who would see us eating away at that. But also in the first, we're, only since March, we're not even a full year into COVID. And I'm deeply concerned about duration. One aspect that I think it's really important for viewers and council to know, and a lot of folks around the country, we've received a sizable amount of one-time revenues to help us mitigate the impacts of COVID right now. We can't anticipate those to happen next year. In fact, things like the Bureau of Workers' Comp, those were probably one time. I am concerned about that next year, and I'm concerned about additional stimulus and things like that. So I think, to Director Lombardi's point, the uncertainties of what we will receive, we have to assume will be only the income tax and the other revenues coming in for next year.
Thank you for that, Auditor. I really think this is a key discussion we're having right now, specifically focused in on that word duration. Auditor, thank you. And Director for sort of detailing the use of the rainy day fund. These one-time monies that we got that kind of have helped us be in the revenue picture that we currently exist are the reality, and we're glad that they were there, but we can't take anything for granted about duration moving forward. This is a pretty conservative budget. There's not a lot of growth here. And you've heard both Auditor Kilgore and Director Lombardi sort of talk through the tough decisions that have to be made in those scenarios. But I just wanted to make sure we didn't move past this overall budget picture without zeroing in on rainy day and basic city services, because those represent monies that are there that we can call on if needed, but we have to be very cautious about when they are used because of duration. So thank you both for helping folks really understand that piece. I have.
Member Brown, if I may, just to add on to that, just for the listening and viewing audience, is the fact that in 2020, we did get the 157 million CARES stimulus, which really helped us navigate through some tough times. Had it not been for that, there would have been a very big impact on our operating budget. Things like PPE and hand sanitizer and cleaning services would have had to be used out of our operating budget. So when you look at the Basic City Services Fund, if we don't get another stimulus, or even if there is a stimulus but yet goes to maybe smaller communities, that's where we're going to have to dip into when we have to try to navigate through any economic or community issues that COVID will continue to have in 2021.
Yeah,
that's
exactly right. The CARES Act is a key example of one-time money, and I mean, our public health department has been the absolute front lines of fighting this crisis, and CARES Act specifically went to help COVID response. CARES Act money was not deployed to, stabilize budgets. They said you couldn't use it to just stabilize your budget. It wasn't just like, oh no, we're not going to have enough money this year. It's helping local communities to directly respond. And that's where you saw the portfolio of things that the mayor proposed and council allocated. But chief among those was our response within our public health department, the front lines of the front lines. So thank you, Director, for pointing that out. We would have been in a very different situation without CARES Act dollars in terms of what our health department could do. Great. Well, thank you. So a couple more questions, Director, a little less global, more specific into some of the overall budget line items. So there is $4 million budgeted in claims, which is a decrease from last year. But I just wonder if you have detail on what we did pay out last year.
I do not have those. I'm not sure. I brought a couple of my smart colleagues with me if they might know that answer. But typically we work with the city attorney. We get I think it's a quarterly report that talks about ongoing claims that are making its way through the system. And you just never know the timing of when those will be settled. So each year we kind of work with them and we try to budget in anticipation for any of those claims. I don't know, Adam or Aileen, we can get back to your office for that, but I don't think we have that number available today.
Okay. Feel free to jump in if Adam or Aileen, if you do have that, but if not, I would appreciate that follow-up so we understand the comparison. And then second question is, in the mayor's priorities, there's the debt transfer line contains several items. And can you detail each of these? I know that you went into several of the public safety items, which I don't know if they're in that mayor's priorities line item or elsewhere. But can you talk us through what's contained in there, what's funded through that?
Yeah, so I think you're looking at the citywide account, which is a transfer account that we transfer funds throughout the year to different departments out on it as they need it for programs. So in that line item, we do have funding for some additional technology needs as it relates to the CAD system and the records management for police as we work through that, and fire as well as we work through that. We put $5 million, I think, in the budget itself under DOT, and we pulled $5 million and put it in the citywide account for any additional needs that may come up throughout the year for that system. The other ideas on there are some of the youth violence and some other strategic programs to look at that holistic approach of safety we talked about that we know aren't going to start day one, January 1, 2021. So as we begin to develop that program or those, we will then transfer those dollars to the appropriate department. Most of it will be in neighborhoods or health to help us with youth violence and with the ongoing mental health issues and the addiction issues that we have in our community right now. So that are some of the items that are in there that are budgeted specifically in that contingency or that other priority.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that is what I had on the portion of, those are the questions I had on the initial portion of your presentation. If you want to get into your departmental level presentation, I may have more questions there, but I'll of course save those so that you can present first.
This will be quick. If anything, ours is not the most fun to talk about. It doesn't have a whole lot of cool things in it. So,
Oh, don't be shy.
well, the Department of Finance and Management is composed of basic two units: the financial management and the asset management groups. We're responsible for the budget development, procurement, fleet maintenance, facilities maintenance, real estate, and some general fund construction projects. When you consider all of our funds together, our budget equals 142 million. 90 million is within the general fund. It supports 298 full-time employees and 25 part-time employees. We include $2.7 million for property management services at our municipal court and Jerry Hammond buildings, $395,000 for various insurance premiums for city property, and we also have budgeted $9 million for the 2021 hotel motel tax disbursements. Within the financial management section, $27.8 million is for technology billings for the general fund, $50,000 for Bonfire, which is a citywide program that is used to solicit all of our requests for proposals, $115,000 for citywide memberships, and $1 million for the public defender contract. Our largest portion of our budget lies within the asset management. Facilities management is part of that and is responsible for preventative maintenance, cleaning, and repairs for all city facilities of most city facilities, nearly 3 million square feet worth, and security personnel for our downtown campus. It totals $17.7 million and supports 94 full-time employees and 19 part-time employees. $6 million is invested to pay for utility bills on behalf of the general fund agencies, $1.3 million for repair and maintenance services, $3.5 million for custodial staff and custodial services at the fire and police academies and the Columbus Public Health Department, $1.9 million for security services. This includes personnel and maintenance contracts, and $890,000 for various maintenance supplies and materials. Our fleet management proposed budget is $38 million and supports 132 full-time and 5 part-time employees. The division is an internal service division, which means that services they perform are charged back to city departments. Fleet is responsible for the maintenance, fueling, and procurement of vehicles and equipment. There's approximately 6,400 on and off-road vehicles in our fleet, and that includes 250 dedicated CNG or compressed natural gas vehicles and 203 electric vehicles and 178 hybrid vehicles. Investments include $16 million for supplies and parts, which includes $8.3 million in citywide fuel costs and $835,000 for compressed natural gas purchases. And as we talked earlier, council member, as with previous budgets, we provide funds in the citywide account to transfer throughout the year. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide not only the mayor's budget, but also the Department of Finance and Management's 2021 proposed budget.
Thank you so much. We contract with several different services, including custodial and repair and maintenance, and many of those come through the finance department. So I would love to hear from you in light of some of our recent efforts to ensure residents of Columbus can earn living wages. How does the department monitor our vendors for compliance with prevailing wage and responsible wage and other labor laws?
Yeah, so in most of our service contracts, we do follow up with the companies to ensure that they're paying their full-time employees at least $15 an hour. As you know, in the code, there are specific services that they must pay the living wage if they have 25 or more employees. And so we do follow up with them. In our construction contract, when we do construction, such as if we build a firehouse, we do have project managers who are on the site, and we have construction management firms that keep an eye on ensuring that payrolls are correct. We audit those payrolls. We make sure that prevailing wages are being paid, and then the city has its own prevailing wage coordinator who will also from time to time go to different project sites if there's problems and ensure that companies are paying those prevailing wages.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to the use of public dollars, it's always very important to make sure we're on it.
Yeah.
And I said the phrase responsible wage, and that may not be what prevailing wage is a little bit more of a common term. Responsible wage is what we refer in the city basically as, correct me if I get this slightly wrong, but as the lowest paid union employee, right? So the city's sort of lowest wage is what we call our responsible wage, and that's what we ask contractors to meet. Did I explain that right?
Yes, you did. Perfect.
And what is that? Do you know what that number is right now? It's 15 something.
It's just slightly over 15, but I don't know the exact. We usually change it at the beginning of the year. So as we get close to 2021, there'll be a memo come out from my office that says this is the new responsible wage.
Great. Well, we'll keep our eye out for that. Thank you.
All right.
And then I also wanted to ask about one of the department's strategic priorities for this upcoming year is updating existing procurement processes to provide greater opportunity for small and minority-owned businesses. Can you discuss what steps the department will take towards this goal this year? It is a big goal. It's a very important goal. So I know you have to look at it incrementally to make sure we're really achieving what we're aiming for.
Yeah, so one of the ideas, obviously, we'll be working with Director Stallings over in ODI as she begins to implement her disparity study, and we'll work together with her to make changes to the what we call Chapter 329, which is the procurement code that I am responsible for. Some of the things we may be looking at is, are there opportunities for sheltered markets? Are there opportunities for a different bidding process for certain thresholds? In our construction, we are looking at different ways that we can do construction bidding so that it's just not necessarily always just lump sum. And it allows our contractors to use more minority, small, and female-owned subcontractors. So we're going to be looking at different delivery methods for construction as well. You are absolutely right. It is going to be a heavy lift. It won't happen overnight, but we'll work diligently to try to make a few changes throughout the year if we can.
Great. Thank you, Director.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your participation in this hearing, and again to you and your whole team on the diligence required to put together a budget in any year, but especially in the year that is 2020. We've said this before, but we have multiple budgets occurring at once right now between your office and the council with the capital budget, the operating, the CDBG, all of these things kind of coming to a head at once due to the unique nature of 2020. And I'm appreciative of your team for their hard work in making sure that gets done.
They're awesome.
Great. Okay, well, we will move on then to the next portion of our hearing. I would like to welcome Assistant Director Sierra Adams for an overview of the Education Department's proposed budget. Assistant Director Adams, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate your time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Brown, and everyone in this meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you the proposed 2021 budget for the Department of Education. Our mission is to enable all Columbus children to succeed in Columbus's vibrant and growing economy, and to develop into a highly skilled, creative, entrepreneurial workforce that will propel economic growth in the 21st century. We thank you for both giving us the tools and the support that we need to accomplish this mission. Our total proposed appropriation for the Department of Education for 2021 is $6,593,384. The majority of this funding, $4,731,325, is for Early Start Columbus, our pre-K expansion program, which provides direct support for pre-K slots, professional service contracts, and consultant fees. As you know, Mayor Ginther's vision for America's Opportunity City is that every 4-year-old in Columbus has access to a high-quality pre-kindergarten education. An investment in early childhood development, especially for disadvantaged children, helps prevent achievement gaps, reduces the need for special education, increases the likelihood of healthier lifestyles, lowers the crime rate, and reduces overall social costs. Through Early Start Columbus, we have worked collaboratively with the state of Ohio, Columbus City Schools, and a network of community-based providers to serve 5,500 Columbus children over the last 7 school years. For the last 4 years, we've engaged in a strategic approach to our investments in pre-K that has allowed us to serve more children by spending our money wisely. In 2016, we required providers to braid city funding with other funding sources, such as Ohio Department of Education's Early Childhood Education Grant and Ohio Job and Family Services publicly funded childcare. So there's 2 main benefits to this strategy. First, it allows us to use our funds more cost effectively by designating city funds as last dollar awards. Braiding funds with other sources allows us to grant a higher number of awards. Consequently, we have been able to serve many more children per year than when we started. So in our inaugural year, back in 2014-2015 school year, we served 350 children. This year, we'll be serving over 1,000 with the same amount of money. Secondly, by braiding dollars, providers can receive greater total award amounts per child, which allows them to make greater investments in quality improvements for their program. And because of the importance of making data-driven decisions, we are requesting $168,750 for technical support for the C-Hive platform. In previous years, the department was a part of a collaborative funding model with Future Ready Columbus and Franklin County, but the 2 are no longer a part of the collaborative, so we're contracting with the provider alone, which explains the $38,750 increase from last year. Also, we are requesting $268,000 for Ready for Success, our assessment and teacher coaching program. Providing a safe environment for children to learn after the school day ends remains a priority for the department. The request for 2021 is a continuation level of $389,819 to provide grants to after-school providers to assist them in their efforts. We partner with 19 providers across the city, and they play a major role in the students' social, emotional learning and their academic success. We know that during these times, teachers and students need more coaching and strategies more than ever, and that is why we are requesting $21,355.26 to provide an equitable and responsive care through the Partnership for Success Collaborative. $400,000 of our budget will be used to support Future Ready Columbus, our education-focused public-private partnership. Future Ready has been charged by the mayor in developing a comprehensive birth to 5 strategy tailored for our county that will ensure all children enter kindergarten ready to learn. Together with investments from other public and private sector funders, this appropriation will assist them in their work. Lastly, $564,487 will support the administration of our department. Thank you, Chair Brown, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Assistant Director Adams. I appreciate that. I have 2 questions. The first is about the Hilltop Learning Center. And do you have, this is a really exciting project that the Education Department has obviously led the way on, but what's so exciting about it is the really neighborhood-driven process utilized by the department to get us to where we are. Specifically, do you have any updates on when we expect students will be able to begin learning inside the building?
I'm glad you asked that. We are working on a groundbreaking very soon, and so that our students will be able to actually attend the center in the 23 school year. So we are steady and just moving forward. And like I said, our groundbreaking will be happening very soon.
Great. And these students will be served by the Early Start Columbus program. That's the design of this, right? As they will be students whose education we're essentially funding through these scholarship dollars called Early Start Columbus.
Yes,
Great.
correct.
Great, thank you. And then can you talk about, we just hit a big milestone in 2020. The state has requirements for its publicly funded childcare dollars, requiring programs to get star rated before they would any longer be able to accept publicly funded childcare dollars. Our department specifically looks to give Early Start Columbus dollars only to 3-star or higher rated facilities. So our facilities weren't necessarily in that rough and tumble, but it matters a great deal for us for the whole pipeline and just the overall landscape of childcare providers, especially when you start looking at neighborhoods that have a real dearth of options. So I know that the department really participated in that effort. But the state will have an additional deadline coming up in 2025. And so I just wanted to ask you how the department is sort of considering a 5-year plan to make sure we're doing our part to keep up with those state deadlines, and then any longer term efforts to help facilities get more of our facilities rated at a level where students, where our program, it meets the basically qualifications of our program to get funded. So it's kind of a 2-part question. Hope I didn't phrase that too confusingly. But it's basically, we have all these goals about the state. You know, we want to help providers in Columbus, regardless of whether they're funded through Early Start. But then in an ideal world, we have more highly rated facilities that are then eligible for Early Start. Because right now we fund students at every highly rated facility, essentially. So can you provide any insight on the star rating and the quality ratings of our facilities and what part we play in encouraging a broader landscape of highly rated programs?
So as you said, in 2025, there's going to be a mandate that all providers seeking PFCC dollars need to be 3 stars and above rated. And so the beauty of Columbus, we have this resource and referral agency called Action for Children that we've been working with, and they are taking the lead on this. And we're also working with Future Ready, as they are like I said before, they're our public-private partnership. And I'm trying to think of your second part.
The second part was just about what long-term goals we have to try to get more, not only programs on the star rating system, but more programs kind of up to our standard, because we have a little bit of a higher standard for our dollars, and just to improve quality ratings overall, not just get folks on the star rating system. It probably ties right back into the Action for Children resource that you just indicated.
It does. And also, we work with OSU in our Ready for Success program, and they have a teaching and coaching module in their program that any teacher can access. And so we work with them. And like I said, we're just working to just continue to just raise this awareness that pre-K is school. And with the help of Action for Children and Future Ready, I believe that we will be able to reach our goals and continue to educate the community.
Great. Thank you so much, Assistant Director Adams. Those were all of my questions. I really appreciate your obviously being here, but your hard work throughout the year. This has not been an easy year for childcare providers. And I know that particularly, the education department has been keyed in on those challenges, but particularly you have, because you are the link with so many, you personally are the link with so many of our childcare providers. You are the person they call when they have needs, and you are the person they call when they have a struggle they might not know what to do with. So I appreciate the personal effort that you've put into helping our providers. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that includes the education department's portion of this hearing, and we will move right along to our third department presentation. We have here with us Fiscal Manager Steve Highland to provide an overview of the proposed Recreation and Parks Department budget. Mr. Highland, thank you for being here with us today and providing us this information. Speaking of challenging years, I know that the Recreation and Parks Department has had one and has had to pivot often. With no further ado, the floor is yours, Mr. Highland.
Great. Thank you very much for having me this evening. Start off with, everybody hear me okay? I want to make sure.
Yes.
Sounds good. Great. It's always hard with these things. Just wanted to start off. I've been with the city for going in my 26th year. I've been through all the downturns in the economy that Auditor Kilgore has discussed previously. It was great to hear her speak. I've been through the layoffs and closures of our facilities, and I just wanted to take a minute to just thank both Auditor Kilgore and Director Lombardi for getting us through this, at least the first year of this. I personally appreciate it. Our staff appreciate it, all their work, and then all the public that uses our programming truly appreciate the fact that we're going to continue on next year with no real cuts to our programming. With that said, when I received our target figure this year, I just wanted to let you know I was extremely happy with the target figure. It was, a pleasure to work with the finance staff, and it was helpful to enable us to prepare the 2021 budget with no cuts to services. It's a continuation budget. Our 2021 Recreation and Parks operating budget in whole is $53,456,000. It's comprised of $37,473,000 in staff costs, $2,600,000 in supplies, another $13 million in services, and $341,000 in transfer and other needs. This 2021 budget allows for 353 full-time staff and 1,400 part-time staff. Again, it's a continuation of service budget from 2020. No programming, no services, no operational needs was reduced in this budget that was submitted. I wanted to note that Recreation and Parks requires a need for approximately 20% of our available budget from our earned revenue. I'll be glad to answer any questions about that when we get to the end, but obviously with everybody else on a lot smaller scale than anyone else experienced. But we had a lot of up and downs with our revenue projections and just getting through this with all the closings of our programming, our rentals and sports activities. But we've put together a plan for next year that's going to get us through this. Our revenue is not going to be fully back to where it was in 2019, but we're hoping, the second half of 2021, we'll get through this all and our revenue will get back up to where it was. I wanted to present some highlights of our budget submission. Again, any questions at the end will be greatly appreciated. Linden Community Center, it's substantially complete now. The final occupancy should occur in January. It's planned on opening the first week of February for the public. The APS program is fully funded again in 2021 with the violence intervention and the jobs program. The jobs program continues to grow every year. APS program also manages the Cap City Nights Festival. They're fully funded in 2021. In 2020, we added a program in the southeast area of Columbus. This will continue for 2021. Internally, we call it the Center Without Walls programming. We'll continue our efforts to promote safety and facility safety assessments in 2021. This 2021 budget includes a phase 2 of a facility safety assessment program. It helps update lighting, security cameras, and building layout to make it safer places for our patrons to use the facilities. The 2021 budget has full funding to get our outdoor pools open and available again for our communities. As you all are aware, the 2020 year was hard. We didn't open up our pools, but we are on track to get everything back up as long as everything's running again in 2021, as we hope it will be. The budget has full need for all the seasonal staff to be in there, and all the pools will be up and operational. The summer feeding program, it was reduced in 2020, not by lack of funding at all, just lack of attendance at our camps during the pandemic, obviously. We did serve over 75,000 meals in 2020, and we did start some new initiatives in this year, and we're going to continue those on in 2021. We hosted 68 produce markets and distributed 312 pounds of food in 2020. In 2021, the feeding program is fully funded, and we're hoping to serve as many as 500,000 meals in 2021. Also, our camps, as you mentioned earlier, our staff did a great job making do with all the COVID restrictions we had. We had to alter everything a lot to meet all the needs with the 8 participants to 2 camp leaders. It was really hard for the staff to get that all up and operational, but they did a great job doing it. 2021 will provide a full budget for back to normal summer camp experience, fully staffed, and hopefully back to field trips. We eliminated field trips this year, but hopefully if everything gets back to normal, we'll be taking field trips again and have vans and buses full of kids going different places throughout the camping season. In 2020, we expanded our budget to have a better provide for events and festivals throughout the city. We're going to continue that expansion that we didn't get to have it obviously in 2020 because all the festivals were not able to happen. But for 2021 budget, this expansion remains. It's fully funded to provide the Jazz and Rib Fest, the African American Festival, Rhythm on the River, Winterfest, and all the other activities and running events that happen throughout downtown Columbus. That's all in the 2021 operational budget. We also, again, provide subsidies to Franklin Park, the Conservatory, the King Arts Complex, and Children's Hunger Alliance. I just want to say we do have several contingency plans in place to continue the operations fully into 2021, even if we have unknown closures. We're experiencing closures right now for the next few weeks, where we had to close down our recreation centers and our rental facilities, athletic complexes. But we do have a contingency plan going into the beginning of 2021. If everything is not fully operational, we'll still get through this all. We're still hoping, like everybody else, by mid-2021, we'll be back to where we were again. That's all I had to prepared to present. I'm better with questions than presentations. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Highland. I appreciate the presentation. And again, you know, the story of the 2020 budget for Recreation and Parks was an ever-changing picture, you know, with some reliable year-over-year programs like Jazz and Rib Fest, you know, just not occurring. And then with some, like our Go Lunch program, having to fully pivot. So I appreciate you sort of calling those things out. And also highlighting that some of those things maybe are permanent changes that we can make as a department in how we are a resource to residents. So thank you very much for that. I did want to, you talked about apps, and I appreciate that. And can you talk a little bit about the goals for apps in 2021? Largely, you know, 2020 was a different year for every part of the department, and looking forward into 2021. Can you talk about what the goals are for apps in particular as we continue, depending on the duration, not necessarily of the pandemic, which we hope we will be able to get under control globally, but the duration, as Auditor Kilgore mentioned, of our pandemic-based recession. The need for apps, especially the jobs component, is going to be just as high, if not greater than ever. So any light you can shed on the goals for 2021 for apps would be great.
Definitely. There's a couple components, as you said, to apps. The violence and intervention program will continue fully. We're going to still continue to hire the outside organizations to help us with that. We did partner with the health department. I didn't mention that, but an expansion for 2020 will roll into 2021 as well. For gun violence, we hired a full-time person, and so did the health department, and they're working together to help with gun violence. They're going to continue with the Cap City Nights festivals. As far as the jobs program, extremely successful. We did bring on 2 full-time staff to help with the jobs program as well, as the other person in the violence intervention, and they continue to do programming. They eliminated a lot of field trips this year, but they still were able to do a lot of training. How Dominican they went and they did training to make sure that they had social distancing and everything. But it'll continue to grow, and especially now that they got the full-time staff on board, both the violence intervention, the festivals, bringing the communities together, and also the jobs program. I think I can't recite specific number goals, but it's definitely going to continue to get better.
Great, thank you so much. And then my last question is about the meals program. Can you dive a little bit deeper into how the department pivoted in 2020 and what our plan is to serve meals in 2021?
Yeah, definitely. So the operating budget portion of the food program is relatively small. It covers some part-time staff and full-time and costs to service the refrigeration systems. But we have a very large federal grant, and typically we serve into 375 to 400,000 meals. It's all the kids, obviously, that were on free lunch program during the schools. They get out and then they come to our camps, and they're provided a lot of meals. With everything going on, the camp attendance was so low, we didn't get a lot of the federally funded school lunch type meals. But then we opened up a new program where staff were going out and they were passing out produce. It was a drive-through system. We also we were nowhere near the level that, just to jump on this with the CARES funding, we were nowhere near the level that health department was. But we, along with the produce we were passing out, we passed out masks. We also did with the apps program also, they called it a We Care tour, where they were going around and passing out masks and hand sanitizer and things that would help get people through the COVID situation. But for 2021, we hope to continue all the food distribution and these produce drops, but then also get back to the levels we were before with that federally funded grant, where we're getting in the $350,000 or 350,000 meals served range, where the kids are back into camps and we're passing out all the free meals. They can get a meal while they're at the camp, or they could also come in and just grab a meal and go if they're not attending the camp. So we offer both of those things. Does that kind of answer the question you had on that?
And for the department, again, I want to express my appreciation for the Rec and Parks team having every possible scenario thrown at them this year, and being such a public-facing part of our city, really needing to pivot and understand how to meet needs of youth, of seniors, of truly everyone in Columbus during some puzzling times on how to do it. So thank you to you, and I say the same to Director Lombardi and the team all the time.
Can I say one more thing too? If they are watching, the rec center staff on your note did a tremendous job. It's unbelievable how they just went from one direction to other to get everybody through camps, and now they're doing the learning centers. The schools are out, but our staff are out there and they're still open. We're providing a learning opportunity for the kids, and they're the frontline people. So if any of them are watching, I just wanted to say thanks to all those guys too, because sometimes I think they're kind of underappreciated, but just want to make sure that they knew that we appreciate what they're doing.
That's exactly right. Thank you. The best laid plans don't work if the folks who are actually out in the rec centers can't implement, and so we appreciate them deeply. Thank you. All right. Well, that does conclude our hearing today. We didn't get any formal speaker slips, but the budget process is ongoing, and if anyone would like to comment on the budget, ask questions about the material covered today. We covered a broad range from overall budget picture to specific departmental budgets of 3 departments: education, recreation and parks, and finance. Please contact my office at any time. There will also be really quickly. So if you'll bear with me, I do want to make sure that everyone knows the following is the budget schedule, because it's all happening over these first 2 weeks of December coming up here. Tuesday, December 1st at 4 is the hearing of neighborhoods, technology, and public utilities committees. Wednesday, December 2nd at 5 is the hearing of the public safety and veteran and senior affairs committees. Thursday, December 3rd at 2 is the hearing of the Health and Human Services Committee. Thursday, December 3rd at 4 is the hearing of the Economic Development, Environment, and Administration Committees. Wednesday, December 9th at 5 is the hearing of the Small and Minority Business Committee. Thursday, December 10th at 5 is the hearing of the Public Service and Transportation, Housing, and Criminal Justice and hearing of the Small and Minority Business Committee. Additionally, City Council announced yesterday that we will be partnering with the Saunders Company to facilitate an extensive community engagement process, which will run alongside of the formal committee hearing process. That engagement process will have a specific focus on reimagining public safety in Columbus. On top of our budget hearing schedule, we'll conduct surveys, focus groups, and community events, either virtually or, if health conditions allow, under strict COVID-19 safety guidelines, again, pending the trajectory of our community spread in the coming months. So that schedule of additional engagement will be announced in the coming weeks. As in years past, we expect final consideration of the operating budget to occur in early February. And with that, I will again thank all of the department staff for being here today. Thank Madam Auditor for her enduring wisdom and help in navigating these budget projections and how to interpret the numbers that we see. And I will conclude the hearing and thank all of those who were able to view and encourage you to continue to stay in dialogue with your City Council about the budget and about what you would like to see or what questions you have in the budget. Thanks so much. Everyone have a great evening and have a very happy, very safe, and very small Thanksgiving. Thank you.